Welcome back, adventurers! So today we got our first update from the developers about the state of early access. So let's have a look, and I'll give you some of my thoughts, and maybe you can give me some of your thoughts down in the comments. How about that? Alright, let's have a look here. The State of Early Access Update 01 from Zantai, great employee and designer. The reception of the Farthest Frontier so far has been fantastic, and we're glad to see so many of you enjoying the game, providing feedback and reporting issues. The game will become the best version of itself thanks in part to your support and contributions. It's the very reason we wanted to do early access again for our second title. The community is showing us that it was the right decision. And the developers also are showing us they are actually listening to the community, and they are reacting to it pretty quickly with improvements of the game. Here, we've been busy reviewing your feedback, getting bug reports to top men, and we're now ready to talk about some of the changes and improvements you can look forward to in the near future and throughout early access. You can expect this to be the first of many updates we post during early access to keep you in the loop of how things are going and where we are headed. This is in no way a comprehensive list of what will happen in early access, but we'd like to address some of your top concerns. And it should be noted we already had two smaller hotfix updates in between. So this is the next one that's coming up, 0.7.5. The version 0.7.5 update. First up, we've nearly wrapped up work on 0.7.5, which is packed with balance changes, bug fixes, and even some new features. You can look forward to this update in the coming days. Very exciting. Although I have already recorded the next 2 episodes of Darkvale, so we'll see how that works out. We're sure the question about performance is on top of many lists. Optimization is an ongoing effort that will progress through all of early access. That is a major thing that many people have noticed. The plan is to introduce improvements as they're ready, so you can expect to see better performance as we release updates. So throughout early access we can expect to see improvements in the performance. So when opening windows, the desirability overlay, when buildings are finished and so on, there are some performance issues when you have high population, and when you re-roll or restart maps frequently, there is an accumulation of memory usage that many people have noticed, which is pretty serious. But apparently they have addressed that. So one issue we have already resolved that should get much better in the upcoming update is a memory leak that occurs when reloading repeatedly. This was a nasty one that could quickly eat up your RAM, slow down load times, and potentially cause the game to not load at all. We will continue to monitor for issues with loading and work on fixes to get you all in the game and playing. So that is really good. That was noted by many users, and they have immediately addressed that. So let's see with the 0.7.5 update when it comes in a couple of days how that affects things. Then there are specific improvements in the game. The trading post. We have a number of things lined up for the trading post. First up, the current notification for a trader arriving is very minimal, just an icon over the building. We prioritized improving this because a lot of people were complaining about not noticing that a trader had arrived. In 7.5, you can look forward to notifications and a sound that will let you know a trader has arrived and which trader it is. Like so. A circular icon will appear in the top left of the screen whenever a trader is in town and ready to trade. This should make it much more obvious whenever trades are available. So you have the circle. As we know, there are already notifications in that form, and there is even a card telling us that a trading post has a visiting traveling merchant. So we can then immediately go to that place. In addition, the trade union has paid its dues to the fire brigade. Fires that erupted at the trading post will now get properly put out in version 0.7.5. We are working on addressing issues with traders not arriving. traders leaving immediately, and upgrading the trading post. We hope to have fixes out to you ASAP in a future update. So they're still working on addressing further issues. That is really good because the trading post is a major feature of the game and often a necessary one for getting certain items. Another thing we absolutely want to add during early access is the option to request a resource from the next trader for a premium price. This way you can always get a critical item for your town without having to wait for the right trader to arrive, because you don't know what a trader is going to bring you, you just have to wait for random stuff. But if you can order something in advance, even if you need to pay a premium price, at least you can get the item you really need. So that is a good way to deal with that. I'm really happy with this change. A new starting experience and game difficulty. We hear your feedback about the game being challenging to get into. I actually haven't found it that challenging, but mostly because I used to play a lot of Banished, and there's some other games like that, and I'm kind of used to this, I guess. But then I'm not very far into the game, so things appear also to scale up as you expand. Some of this is by design, but challenge does not automatically mean frustration. We are working on adding many more tutorials in future updates to help ease you into Farthest Frontier's many mechanics. We also understand that many of you wish to have a more relaxed way to play Farthest Frontier that isn't as pressed for resources. We've created a new map type, Idyllic Valley. This map is teeming with resources of every variety. If you've been looking for a place to settle in a frontier where everything is provided for, well, except heavy tools, those do not grow on bushes, this should be your go-to selection. This is now the default map type when you select new settlement. So for users that are new to the game, players I should say probably, that are new to the game, this will ease them into it and get them familiar with the mechanics, and then they can go roll a new map with a higher difficulty once they understand how the game is played. It's a smart decision. In addition, we've updated the map descriptions and added difficulty indicators to make it more clear what kind of challenge you're setting yourself up for. So here we have the select map type when you're starting a new game. We already had Alpine Valleys, Arid Highlands, Plains and Lowland Lakes, and we now have Idyllic Valley, and they have an indicator here about difficulty. So Idyllic Valley is 2 green arrows up, that means it's very easy, and Arid Highlands is 2 red arrows down, so that's very difficult. I'm expecting that in the future we'll get a couple more map types with varying difficulties, so that will be interesting to see, I guess. In a future update we plan to incorporate difficulty scaling for food spoilage and crop diseases, so those playing on Pioneer will have an easier time maintaining their food sources. So, yeah. Difficulty scaling for food spoilage, that will be interesting. I guess that's a good point as well. So people can choose what kind of difficulty they want to play at. And I think we'll need a more difficult one, a map type and so on, on the hard end as well. We need something like legendary difficulty, where it's really hard, and because some people like that kind of challenge. More resources. We've heard your feedback regarding the sustainability of towns in the end game, so we are taking some measures for 0.7.5. For starters, we are significantly increasing the resources within a mineral deposits. Trees will regrow faster and produce more wood. This should make work camps with 2 workers able to chop trees without any additional micromanagement for a long time, if not indefinitely. So that is very good, because people often get tired of micromanagement. So knowing that this is a possibility, that you can assign this and then you don't need to worry about finding more wood, that is really good. Full work camps focus on trees will still likely make quick work of a forest, but the assumption there is that you need lots of wood and fast. For those hungry for stone, we are adding the mother of all rocks to the game. Behold the Mega Rock. This behemoth should sate hungry cities for generations. So we have a mega rock here that I don't know how much resource there is, but for generations. So this is basically an endless supply of rock. That seems what it is. It's, however, just a massive stepping stone to a long-term solution. Long-term solution. We have addressed an issue where some resources, such as herbs and willow, were generating outside of the pathable area, and then people would get stuck, NPCs would get stuck, and that's not it. No more confusion about what resources are accessible to your villagers. For endgame resource generation, we would like to add several new types of buildings, quarries and deep mines. See, that is the long-term solution to rock. These new endgame structures will serve the purpose of generating an endless supply of resources for your town so that you can work on perfecting your creations for as long as you see fit. Because the map is limited, and especially if, for example, like here you're in the mountains, you wouldn't expect there to be a limited resource of rock. You should be able to use a lot more rock than just the ones that you found on the surface. For wood availability, we notice some of you have resorted to using their core trees to sustain your towns. While this is a fine workaround, it's not exactly an enjoyable one. We are discussing solutions for sustainable forests. Nice. Ultimately, we want there to be a way to maintain forests on the map without requiring so much player micromanagement. Stay tuned for a future update. So, a forest regrows trees, albeit slowly. So yes, a sustainable forest is indeed something that should be available and is realistic. So I hope they come with that soon. Spiritual buildings then. A popular request is churches. You may have already read some of our thoughts and prayers on this one, but ultimately the initial implementation of spiritual buildings has come down to development time. If we do spiritual buildings, we think they should come with some sort of mechanic. I agree with that. So, yeah, there is this spiritual building that we have already in the game, but really, if we want to expand this, yes, there should be some kind of mechanic and there should be some kind of choice, and not just a bare bones entertainment or desirability option. There's also a question of what form these buildings should take. For some, the answer is obviously a church, maybe some sort of quaint wooden church as seen in most of the small New England towns. But wait, is the game set in the colonial period? Should it be a big medieval cathedral instead? What about a Norse temple? Maybe it's not set in a real time period at all. And those are very good concerns. And I think there should be a choice there as well. Where the game is set is something we've largely left for the player to decide. Players should have the freedom, while crafting their own charming town out of the wilderness and watching their people get mauled by bears, to imagine the details of the setting as they see fit. Right? So when it comes to religion, we're not sure that the church is necessarily the obvious answer, and I'm happy they thought of that. It could be interesting and allow for more creative player agency to explore a system where you get to choose deities who could confer different favors upon your town. Or who knows, maybe when the friendly traveling merchant Scorv Egdenar the Butcher was in town, he secretly whispered to those willing to listen about the glorious return of Ravager. Whatever we do for this category of buildings though, we'll want to make sure it's another fun and engaging mechanic that adds a meaningful layer to the gameplay rather than rushing something in just to say we have it in the game. I'm very happy with this, because even in the time period, if you're thinking of like the colonial time period, there were already many different kinds of churches. So even if you go for a church, what kind of church would you go for? Right? There were like heretics, quote unquote, that left their home countries and settled somewhere to have religious freedom. There were all kinds of new religions starting up or others being spread. And yes, I would like the option to play a Norse, kind of like Asatu, as in CK3, with the decorations that go with that. So yeah, I'm really happy that they are like taking time and taking this seriously to give us more options. Production and storage management. There are currently some limitations for resource management that we'd like to address in future updates. So this is not in the coming update. There's no method to transfer resources between storage. There's no way to set quotas. There's no way to set production limits. These are all things that would be very handy to have. Finally, we are planning on adding a way to check or uncheck entire categories of resources in your storage buildings. Just a small quality of life change, but a valuable one nonetheless. That will be very welcome. Graveyard repositioning. Mistakes were made and you buried grandma right outside the compost yard? Or maybe this was your evil plan all along. You feel guilt swelling up inside you and you want to relocate that graveyard. We hear you on this one. Some method of moving the graveyards would be nice. We'd like to come up with some kind of cost to doing so, however, as that should be a choice not made lightly. Perhaps a gold fee may suffice to pay off the local necromancers, not to raid their supply. Expect more on this in the future. So they are already giving us ideas about other things they are working on, but that are going to take more time, that will not be in the 0.7.5 update. Barns and cows. There are a number of issues with barns and cows that we are working through. Slaughtering cows stops working, milk production stops working, cows stop generating new cows. Upgrading to a tier 2 barn or relocating, rebuilding your barn can cause cows to vanish into the void. That is all very nasty stuff, so yes. We've addressed a number of these issues already for 0.7.5, and whatever we do not get to will be promptly addressed for a future update. So they are making sure to communicate to us that, hey, this has our attention, we are working on this. I'm very happy with the openness of communication I'm seeing from the developers here. Then new decorations. Making a beautiful town is one of the highlights of Town Builders. We're working on giving you more options so you can have even more variety in your builds. Here's an early work in progress look at the new decorations already in development. That looks very nice. And town showcase. So some people have been making awesome towns already, and they are giving attention to some of those here. They do look indeed very nice. Keep them coming, and perhaps we can make a habit of sharing your best with the rest of the community. I think that's a great idea, to keep this back and forth between the users, the gamers, and the and the developers going. So yes, all in all, I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing, by what I'm reading, by how the developers react to what the users are saying. So a good start to this community and developer intercommunication. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Are there things that are missing? Are there problems that still need to be addressed? Or are you happy with these changes? What are your ideas about the state of the early access at this point?